Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
I
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Folks, today is Tuesday, November 12, 2024, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Oh, wokeism, identity politics, economic anxiety. Democrats' Monday morning quarterbacking as to why they lost the presidency in several U.S. Senate seats. I'll talk with Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, on how this is a desperate attempt by white Democrats to frankly throw black people under the bus. Vice President Kamala Harris returns to the White House and is greeted with enthusiastic applause by White House staffers. In New York, the judge in Donald Trump's hush money trial is delaying his sentencing for another couple of weeks. Also, a Louisiana judge says the state's law mandating each classroom display the 10 Commandments, well, it's unconstitutional. We'll talk about that and more. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. On the Black Star Network, let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Well, you can always count on white Democrats to start complaining and, oh my God, this is what happened and why we lost, and it's defund the police, it's wokeism, it's identity politics, it's all of that stuff, even though none of that stuff Vice President Kamala Harris actually talked about. It's just whining and complaining. Here's James Carville just really upset, talking about, I mean, we told y'all this identity crap, it's awful. Listen to this.
We have no legislative power, we have no executive power, we have no judicial power. So when you're out of power, you're an opposition party. And go and tell all of the people that are sending you and asking you for money, justify what you did, justify what you did wrong, and tell us what you're going to do different. Because what you've done ain't worth a shit. Get your head around that. In all of the Washington-based Democrats farting around, going to wine and cheese parties and talking about how misogynistic race, get your ass out of Washington and go work on a 2026 campaign and do penance to make up for your goddamn arrogance and stupidity. Well, we're going to say we told you so. We told you this identity shit was disaster. We told you to get out in front of public safety issues. You didn't. We told you to have an open process and demonstrate the magnificent and staggering and deep talent that exists in the modern Democratic Party. You didn't. We told you to differentiate yourself from Biden. You didn't. I hate to be some fucking know-it-all, but all of these things are part of the record.
Yeah. All right. So, not only that, I saw this tweet earlier, and I had to comment on it, and my next guest also commented on it. Let me find it. So, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Okay, so he posted this. Of the 20 highest median income states, Democrats won 18 of them. Of the 20 lowest median income states, Democrats won 3. Yes, race and gender play a big role in politics, but the hard truth is this: Democrats clearly aren't listening to the people we say we fight for. Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. So, Cliff, also on Morning Joe yesterday, they read Maureen Dowd's column, and they were talking about. They read her entire column, and her whole column was about identity politics, and Trump got a mandate. Here's what's interesting. The votes are still being tallied. President Joe Biden won by 4.4%. Trump is going to win by about 2%. Do you recall folks calling it a mandate in 2020? No, they didn't. So it wasn't a mandate. Just because he won all 7 battleground states, that's not a mandate. The numbers are the numbers. But the thing that trips me out is all of a sudden they're blaming identity politics. And here's the thing, Cliff, they never seem to admit that whiteness is identity politics. Maleness, white maleness is identity politics. It seems that, if it's black or women or Latino or gay, that's the only identity politics that exists.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Roland. And as I said in my tweet, this country was founded on identity politics. There's never been an era that hasn't been defined by identity politics, by white identity politics, by white male identity. It was literally, identity politics is literally enshrined in the Constitution. Y'all said only white men, property owners, could vote. That's the original identity politics. And every era, every decade since then has been defined by that identity politics.
In fact, Cliff, here is Donald Trump touting identity politics today.
Yes.
And getting their money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit, unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America.
So Donald Trump is saying, white people, I'm coming to you with reparations.
Exactly. And that was written into everything that he just said is a part of Project 2025.
Yep.
You know, the Project 2025 that he said he didn't know anything about. But before before the votes are even counted in this election, he's already rolling out the Project 2025 policies, and his transferring or transforming the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights from something that investigates and deals with anti-Black racism. He is now redefining it as dealing with anti-white racism, anti-white discrimination, which doesn't exist, but that's the identity politics. And that's from Jim Crow through the Southern strategy, right, which was identity politics defined, to Ronald Reagan, to Pat Buchanan, all the way through this person. That's all they do is identity politics. In fact, even the economic anxiety argument is really another form of identity politics, because when they talk about the working class and economic anxiety, they're only talking about the white working class, as if Black folks ain't working class. That's identity politics. It's all this country knows.
And so now they say, we need to get away from these things. We don't need to be talking about these things. And so let's not, we should be talking to the individual. Let's go to that Chris Murphy tweet, because he talks about, how we're losing the folks at the bottom. Okay, there's a slight problem here, Cliff. If I looked up right now and I said, let's see, the 20 lowest medium income states. Let me just, because I tweeted this to Chris and I said, okay, you know what? Can you tell me exactly what those states are?
Right.
And if we looked at medium income by state, what we would realize, so let's see, the poorest states by medium income. Okay, so here we go. All right, y'all. Here are the poorest states by median income. Number one is Mississippi. Red state. Number two, West Virginia. Red state. Number three, Arkansas. Red state. So that's just three. I'm gonna pull up the other ones. Here's why I want to do that. So if we go by Chris Murphy's perspective, then Republican policies, if they were so amazing, if they were so great, if they spoke to the working class, then those wouldn't be the bottom three brokest states in the union. It would be nirvana. It would be amazing. It would be lovely economically. Folks would be flocking to Mississippi, West Virginia, and Arkansas to live and do business because it's so great. Those people, clearly, Cliff, are voting against their economic interest.
Right. And what's so interesting is, you've got all these red states, and as you listed them all out, or some of them out, and if these people are so economically anxious, you would think that they would vote out the people that have been running their states for decades, not for 1 or 2 years, but for decades. In fact, last year in Mississippi's election, you had a Democratic candidate that was just talking about economics, talking about getting rid of the tax on food, which Mississippi's is the highest, right? Talking about expanding Medicaid in their state, talking about those bread and butter issues that they're trying to convince us that these folks are so economically anxious about. And he couldn't win. Because at the end of the day, in those states that Chris Murphy's talking about, the white folks there are okay with being poor, as long as the black folks are more poor, right? As long as they've got some other folk that they can look on to as being above them or pointing out and saying that they're the problem, they're okay with that. So this ain't about economic anxiety, or those states would look differently.
In fact, Cliff, here's the bottom 10 states. Mississippi, Arkansas, West Virginia, Louisiana, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, New Mexico, South Dakota, Kentucky. Of those 10, only one is a blue state, which Vice President Kamala Harris won, which Democrats typically win. That is New Mexico. So I'm trying to understand what exactly is Senator Chris Murphy, is James Carville, is Maureen Dowd, is Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, all of these people who keep talking about Senator Bernie Sanders. I really want them to explain to me how they are going to talk to the people in 9 of these 10 states to say, hey, you should be listening to Democrats. There's nothing to say, because what Howard Dean said in 2004 still applies. The Republicans talk to these people about culture, about God, gays, and guns. Republicans ran $135 million worth of ads about Vice President Kamala Harris and transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants in prison. Even though the policy came together under Donald Trump, he was in the White Office. He was in the Oval Office. I call it the White Office because historically has been the White Office. But this is the reality. So I'm just trying to understand what is the conversation that Democrats can have with all of these red states that continue to be broke, to be poor, to be illiterate, and have the worst health outcomes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we can't count on this media or even these Democratic elected officials, because I've said from the beginning that there's some Democrats that would be more comfortable losing elections than to actually have to win elections and to acknowledge a progressive Black base, right? But we can't count on the media, especially, to get this analysis right of this election any more than when there's a police shooting that you can count on the police department to do the investigation. The media is complicit in this. The media is complicit in the ways that they tore up Biden, only talked about his age, never talked about Trump's age, only talked bad about the economy, and then you wonder why people think that the economy was bad, when in fact it's the envy of the entire industrialized world. But all they did, and then now we're supposed to trust them to do this analysis, talk about economic anxiety. They can't do it because to talk about a real analysis that really talks about the issues of race and misogyny forces them to deal with themselves. And just like the police department is not going to investigate themselves that way, this media is not going to investigate themselves that way. So we can't count on them. So we got all these bad think pieces that are out there. Just like I can't count on them even for these exit polls. Because I can't believe that the same people that tried to tell us for 2 years that Black folks weren't going to show up, that Black men weren't going to show up, and then we show up and we do at the same level as what we did with Biden, right? Even more arguably. And yet we're supposed to trust them to say, oh, you know what? We were wrong about y'all. No, they're not going to do that. And so all of the stories that we're seeing are basically just to reaffirm the narratives that they had just spent 2 years trying to build up.
Yeah, I mean, it amazes me, and I pulled up another one, and so I think these are the 20. So Mississippi red, West Virginia red, Louisiana red, Arkansas red, that's 4, Alabama red, that's 5, New Mexico, Kentucky red, Oklahoma red, South Carolina red, Tennessee red, Missouri red, North Carolina red, Ohio red, Indiana red, Florida red. I'm absolutely confused. What is the conversation? And here's the other thing. Here's what I want to know. Okay, James Carville, you said, this defund shit. Biden and Harris gave more money to the cops. They actually did more. I'm sorry. Do you recall hearing Biden or Harris talk about defund the police? I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that in any Senate race. So let's see here. They're latching on. Then, these Democrats need to get out of these parties in D.C. How about you, James? How about you get out of your crypt? How about you get out of your crypt and realize what's actually happening out here? How about you realize that no matter how much truthful information was shared, people decided, you know what? I like the lie. I saw the Scott Pelley 60 Minutes interview. I saw a clip, and this woman, Scott Pelley told her how the election was. He was talking to her about the election, and I don't feel better. My wages didn't go up. Not. He's telling her. In fact, here it is. Listen to this.
7:30 we opened, 7:30 to 10. Yeah.
Roz Werkheiser was a waitress 25 years ago. Now she runs the place.
My mother used to always say, gotta vote Democrat, they're for the poor people.
You grew up in a Democratic household?
Yes.
But you just voted for Donald Trump?
Yes.
Inflation is down by more than half. Interest rates are falling, mortgage rates are falling, wages are going up. Are you not feeling that?
I don't feel it. No, I don't feel it. I don't feel it at all. Everybody I talked to, nobody's wages went up. But we had 4 years of this. 4 years. Gas was super high. Yes, it just went down now, but the past 3.5 years it was up.
Okay. So she said gas was up. Okay. But see, again, this is the folks who, the last 4 years, it was up. There was a thing called COVID in 2020. There was a thing called COVID in 2021. And we were still impacted by COVID in 2022. So you weren't gonna be paying $1.50 for gas because people weren't going anywhere. So again, like you sit here and you go, what the hell are y'all talking about? You were coming out of COVID.
There's a survey that was done recently that shows that people who identified correctly objective statements about the nature of the economy, the nature of the country, basic issues like immigration, like people who are able to identify that immigration has actually gone down over the past year and a half. People who are able to identify that inflation is actually pretty low.
Yeah, I got the graphic right here. Keep going.
Yeah, people that were able to identify these basic facts overwhelmingly voted for Kamala Harris. People who did not know these basic facts, they voted for Trump, right? So there is a basic problem with just the nature of like facts and information, and that's a real problem, right? And I'll even say that some of Democratic, progressive, whatever, that they've got to do better about the way that we deal with communications, right? It's not just the messaging, and it certainly isn't the policy, but it is about this ecosystem where conservatives control just a lot of different forms of communication that Democrats and progressives don't have. And then the mainstream media makes it worse, right? Because what they do is they repeat the stuff that Trump is saying. And so there's a very basic problem that if people have accurate information, then they will vote the right way. It's not even like the woman in the video said, where she's like, oh, I'm not feeling it, right? It's one thing if you say, well, yeah, I know that this is a fact, that the economy's better. I'm just not feeling it. Fine, that's your reality. I'm not asking you to whatever your lived experience, but you got to recognize what the reality is overall. And most people who voted for Trump simply are receiving different information, and they live in a different reality.
But we also have to accept, Cliff, we also have to accept the fact that Donald Trump and Republicans lie. Yeah. They lie with impunity. Yeah. And Fox News and conservative talk radio and conservative digital, they protect the lie. They advance the lie. They literally push the lie. Here is somebody here talking about, and again, for all these people out here, oh my God, gas prices were high. They won't accept this fact. They won't accept the reality of what happened, but there is a reason. There is a very clear reason, first, why gas prices were low, why they then went high, and why we had inflation. Listen.
Here's the accurate story that I've been telling for forever. Saudi Arabia and Russia hatched a plan to con Donald Trump into signing a huge production cut deal. And they actually did this before COVID. They were going to do this regardless of if COVID happened or not. Understand that Vladimir Putin and MBS are tight. They're very close friends. They're very close allies. Why in the world would they get in the middle of an oil price war? If not but for to get Donald Trump to the table. So COVID happened. They started the oil price war. Oil went negative. That's the zero line. So that's how far below zero it was. And they got what they wanted. They got Donald Trump to come to the table. You see, they needed his blessing because he had been threatening Saudi Arabia his entire presidency if they didn't continue increasing oil production. But they knew if they showed him a little favor, they knew if they talked to him the right way, they could pretty much convince him to do anything because it's Donald Trump. So he agreed to the OPEC 2020 deal, a 2-year production cut of 10%. So this was a 9.7 million barrel a day production cut, which at the time was almost as much as the entire U.S. production because U.S. production had fallen to 11.5 or so million barrels a day. So just imagine almost wiping out all of the United States oil production on the global market, what that would do. That deal was signed in April of 2020, and it ended May 1st of 2022. The problem with the deal was that it was a 2-year cut. That was a terrible, terrible deal. This is what happened to gas prices from the beginning of the deal to the end of the deal. This is what happened to inflation in the United States, beginning of the deal, end of the deal. This is what happened to global inflation, beginning of the deal, end of the deal. And this is what happened by the end of the deal. Saudi Aramco became the most valuable company to ever exist. And somewhere in there was a deal for Jared Kushner to get $2 billion. that is the accurate and correct depiction of the events. Because half the podcasts in the country right now are getting it wrong. So don't just share this, share it with the right people. Those people running those podcasts, people in the media. That way they can deliver the correct information. Thanks.
Here's Cliff. I mean, it happened.
Yep. And that's the point that I was trying to get to with that graph, and you are absolutely right by saying that people will believe the lie. So the reason that you've got this false information and people being disconnected from reality is because at the end of the day, they don't want to hear what that white brother just said when they can listen to the white racist that'll just tell them that the reason that they're in their situation is because of these black folks, it's because of these immigrants, it's because of whatever, it's because of LGBT, all of that stuff. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the racism and the misogyny. It's the same way that people, by white folks, poor white folks in Kentucky, hate Obamacare. They hate Obamacare, right? Don't talk to them about Obamacare, but talk to them about, what's it called, the Kentucky Connect or Commonwealth, whatever they call it, and they love it. They're like, don't touch my health care. I don't like Obama, he's a socialist, but don't touch my Kentucky whatever, because as long as it's not attached to Obama, as long as it's not attached to Kamala, as long as it's not attached to some black woman, and they can instead associate with the white supremacists, then they're all good. And that's the hard truth that this country has never been ready to deal with. The last thing I'm gonna say on the identity politics thing, and you touched on it, and this is, again, the problem with the media and the problem with these weak Democrats is they let Trump go out there and define the conversation. Nobody was running on identity politics. Kamala didn't even talk about being the first black South Asian woman. She didn't talk. In fact, if not for Trump questioning her blackness, and then crazy old Dana Bash and whoever it was asking her about it in an interview, there would have been no discussion of her identity. There would have been no discussion of somebody running as an LGBT or as a trans person, right? But they run on that, and then after the fact, Democrats want to accuse Kamala and others of running on, in Carville's example, of running on identity. Wasn't nobody running on identity politics except for Trump. But y'all take the bait, and y'all let him define it, and then you try to say this is what she was running on. And again, this isn't to say that the campaign was perfect, right? We've got our own critiques of the campaign and the financing and how much investment was put on the ground and all that. Fine. But at the end of the day, that's not what defined this election. The same thing that defined this election is what defined the election of 2016, what almost defined the election of 2020. And so, at the end of the day, all of these critiques of the campaign and Kamala and economic anxiety, it's just more of the same foolishness that we heard after 2016. And then it causes you to then what? To shift to the right. And then that creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of now you run away from the policies that were actually successful because you're trying to be like these other folks. And in running away, you've now made it more likely that more of the base is going to look at you like you're full of crap, because you are.
Well, that's why I'm still laughing. I was going back and forth with some people today. They kept talking about, Bernie got sandbagged in 2016, and Torun Walker was tweeting, talking about, I went to HBCU campuses, and he had tremendous audiences there. And I said, he couldn't get black votes. Then Breonna Gray, she was like, the poll, she was polling better among black voters than Kamala. I said, baby, Gallego was supposed to win by 8 to 10 points in Arizona and barely won. I said, don't show me no polls, show me votes. And so, again, these people are stuck in this alternate universe where they think, oh yeah, Bernie was super progressive. This is real clear. If Bernie Sanders were the nominee, Bernie Sanders would have been $100 million in ads calling him a communist, calling him a socialist, and they would have had, and here's the deal, they called Joe Biden that. See, and that's the thing that these Democrats like Carville and Chris Murphy don't understand. It doesn't matter what your voting record is. They're going to call you a communist and a socialist. Tim Walz was a gun-loving, hunting, middle of the country Democrat, and they called him weak, impotent. They call him every name in the book. that's what they're going to do. And so the reality is, what you can't do is allow it to go under. The Harris campaign, I was told this. They literally said, oh, yeah, the transgender ads, they're not moving the needle. And I was like, I've been in Ohio, Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, and I'm seeing 8 to 10 commercials in every game. And what do we now know? That ad that features Charlamagne the God and DJ Envy, those ads, they spent $135 million. They said it moved 2.7 points. What did Donald Trump win by? 2.2 points. Every vote mattered. And so when you, the basic lesson, Cliff, when you allow the opposition to define you and you don't respond and define them, you will be the one giving concession speeches.
Yeah. And you know, just on that ad, you know, and again, mistakes may have been made. I would have dealt with that differently. Like, part of their response was by saying, well, yeah, I did that, but Trump did it too, and that just wasn't landing correctly, right? And again, at the end of the day, it may not have mattered what she said about that issue, because again, you know, white America going to do what white America going to do. But I would have dealt with it differently, you know, by trying to pivot and saying, at the end of the day, it's not trans people that are shooting up your schools. It's not trans people that are causing your prices to be high, your housing to be high. It's not trans people that were denying you health care before we had Obamacare. It's not, you know, trans people doing all these things, and just reverse it and bring it back to the issue that you really want to talk about. But let me say this thing, because you mentioned Gallegos and, you know, these Senate, and there's a lot out there about why some of the Dem candidates did better than Kamala Harris did. And, you know, the challenging thing is, and I've said this before, the math ain't math. It's not so much that Democratic voters were voting for those candidates and then not voting for Kamala. The real disparity is in the fact that Trump got a whole bunch of hundreds of thousands of votes from people who only voted for him and evidently didn't vote for anything else on down ballot, right? Which is a statistical anomaly, right? And I think when you look at that anomaly, when you look at the fact that this is a man who has cheated on everything in his entire life, cheats on his wife, cheated in school, cheated on taxes, cheated with his businesses, cheats on the golf, cheats on everything in his life. But we are supposed to assume that in an election that's going to define his legal jeopardy, that he just decided, oh, I'm gonna just play it up straight, right? And then on top of that, you throw in the fact that what we know, again, this is objective reality, that machines were tampered with in Georgia and in other states by his campaign. It's a part of the Georgia prosecution. At the end of the day, I'm not saying what definitely happened, but I'm saying what definitely needs to happen is that there needs to be some counts and some audits. And this is not sounding like MAGA of 2020, where they were just making up stuff out of nowhere. These are objective facts of things that existed in this election, not to mention 67 bomb threats, and the media has said nothing about it. Mm-hmm. Like, you would think that if there are 67 bomb threats that the FBI has linked to Russia, you would think that there should be some discussion about that. But it's been crickets from our media, because they just wanted to move on to blaming Black folks and talk about economic anxiety. So my point is this, that I believe, Cliff Albright talking, not necessarily my organization, that we've got to have an accounting, a complete accounting selection, because there are too many things that, just statistically speaking, we've never seen. And with this candidate, when you take something that you've never seen before and you mix it up in there with Elon Musk and Putin and everything else that we know, there's some questions that got to be asked. And that's not conspiracy theory. That's just common sense. All right. Cliff Albright, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. All right. Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. My panel will weigh in on this. Folks, while you're watching, do this. Support this particular show, folks. We have figured out our workaround with Cash App, so do this here. Use this QR code with Stripe. Just point your phone to the screen there.
And then if you want to donate via Cash App, you can do so right here. Everybody who gives during the show on all platforms, I'm going to give you a shout out. Well, except the checks in the money order, obviously. So if you wanted to give via Cash App, this is the QR code to use. Also, send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is rmartinunfiltered. Venmo is rmunfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
What's good, y'all? This is Doug E. Fresh, and you're watching my brother Roland Martin Unfiltered as we go a little something like this. Hit it. It's real.
All right, y'all, let's get into it with our panel. Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice, the EPA, Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor, civil rights attorney, Joe Richardson, Joseph's out of LA. All right, folks, let's get into it. So I got to start with you, Randy. And so listen to all these dens. Oh my God, wokeism, identity politics. They literally are parroting right-wing talking points. That wasn't even the focus of the campaign. And so it's laughable. But the fact of the matter is they always hated that, and these are the same folk who won't even acknowledge whiteness as identity.
Because whiteness to them is normal, and everything else is odd, and it should be our business to keep it quiet and cover it as much as we can, as if we can cover our blackness or our womanness. But that's what they want because they don't want, it makes them feel more comfortable. It's quite disgusting to me the way they always talk about identity politics as if it's something that we use for sympathy or leverage when, you know, as we have said, it's baked into America. America is about identity politics. The founders of this country separated us by race. specifically to make money and to justify using us and enslaving us to create us to suggest that we are less than human beings. But when it's convenient for them, they want to say it shouldn't be about race. Why does this always have to be about race when they designed everything to be about race? So that is what's so frustrating about it. They kind of give us a catch-22. We can't get out of it. They don't want us to talk about it, but that is all that they are, is about identity politics. Whiteness is Trump's brand. His brand is centered on whiteness and ensuring that white people stay in a power position in this country. That is what he ran on, if we're honest. That is his platform. That's why he really didn't have to talk about policies, but so much. He could just have concepts and ideas, because really what people cared about and what they voted for was whiteness.
You know, the thing that I'm laughing at right here, Mustafa, is that was a segment. That was a segment on MSNBC. And the segment was called White Rural Rage. And the segment talked about, and here was the headline: White Rural Rage looks at the most likely group to abandon democratic norms. So this was an actual book on Morning Joe. So I'm laughing that Joe and Mika would sit here and read a Maureen Dowd column from beginning to end and act like they didn't have this conversation. And in fact, like, they literally had this whole discussion about Trump's hold over rural voters. Just play a little bit of this, y'all. Let's see here. Here we go.
Serve because he claimed he had bone spurs in his little feet. So why is it that Trump appeals so much to a group he couldn't be more different from? Joining us now, Professor of Political Science at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Tom Schaller, and journalist and opinion writer Paul Waldman. Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the Threat to American Democracy. And Tom, I'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of
So, Mustafa, is that identity politics?
Well, it's definitely identity politics, and I guess they also read your book and decided to take the title and a number of other things.
Yeah, but I haven't been called to come on Morning Joe to talk about my book, White Fear.
Right, exactly. Well, there's a reason for that too. So let's unpack a little bit of this.
Yep.
So you got to understand the psychological manipulation that often goes on. So when you're dealing with folks who maybe are not inside of these beltways, the information that they're continually fed is negativity. It is always about somebody else is coming to take what little bit you already have, and you have to defend that. You got to also understand, it was months and months ago on this show, I talked about PSYOPs. I brought it into our conversation because I started to see how people were utilizing the things that have been done in the military context, and they overlaid that into how do you manipulate a population. You know, so what you do is you focus on influencing their beliefs and their values and their attitudes. And that's how you change the way a target audience sort of operates and how they see themselves and who the enemy is. Now, Malcolm Nance is somebody who worked in the intelligence field who's much deeper into this than I am. But if you watch how Trump sort of does what he does, and you watch how his organization does what he does, and then if you overlay that and understand that you have Russia and a number of other operatives who are outside of this country who are also playing a significant role, then you understand how the destabilization of America is going on and how you manipulate those and you use the levers to get people to always think that either something is always a conspiracy or somebody is against you, and that's how you get them riled up, and that's how you get them to vote against their own interest. And it always baffles me how people don't understand that, because whether it's our government or other governments have used it in the past to be able to get the things that they were looking for. So that's just one part of it. When you look at racism and misogyny, these are tools also that folks will use to be able to separate people, to be able to, move the way that you want to be able to move. So we got to understand the game that is being played, and often we think about it just in its purest form. And this is a part of strategy. It is strategy that has been developed, utilized, and has been tested in the past and today. And often we just don't bring that into our conversation. So it is not just about economics, right? Economics is a lever. When you can manipulate the way people see, even if something is moving in a positive direction, and if you continue to tell them that it is not, and you hear that message over and over and over again, you're going to start to believe that. It is all about perception. And the night that we were watching the election, I talked about, I can't remember if I said it's 80 or 90% of this game is about perception. Perception is manipulated by what you continue to feed into people's psyche. Yep. So we just got to understand actually what's going on. And I know that we're dealing with so many of the sort of just everyday issues. How do you make people not look at what the top economists are telling you, that you are in a strong economy and that it just takes a little while for that to be able to roll over into being able to make positive changes in your life, and then to go for somebody who is a failed businessman, who's somebody who has failed economic policy, somebody who tells you that they're going to put tariffs in place that is going to raise the price of food. So one of the things people said is, well, eggs are too high or bread is too high. If that's your reality, I'm not saying that that's incorrect, but if you have somebody who is going to raise those prices, but yet you still vote for them, then you got to take a step back. And maybe it's because I have, advanced degrees in psychology and that type of thing. But you got to ask yourself, what is going on in people's minds that allows them to be manipulated like this? Because it doesn't just happen by happenstance. There has to be intentionality in being able to move people and manipulate people and to get them to vote against their interests.
This was a conversation, Joe, that took place on Stephanie Ruhl's show, The 11th Hour. But I want you to listen to Stephanie's response, which is the typical white journalist response. I mean, I actually mentioned that in White Fear, that part of the problem is that white journalists don't want to have this deep conversation because it's going to force them to confront themselves. Eddie actually said it. Watch this.
There's this sense, right, that whiteness, right, is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials are confusing the hell out of me. Right?
Eddie, a lot of people voted because their life's too damn expensive, and it was here, and it.
They voted for. You're telling me, Stephanie, that all of these people who believe that their lives are, that bread is too high and eggs are too high, that they voted for a convicted felon, a guy who said we can grab the pea.
I think that a lot.
They voted for this guy.
I'm not defending it, but I think there are tons of people that don't pay attention to, and I'm not defending it, don't pay attention to politics at all. But while we live in the most prosperous country in the world, people are saying life's not fair, I'm not doing well, my son's still living in the basement, I can't seem to get a job, I don't like the status quo, I'm voting for something else, and he was the person.
I love you to life,
I love you,
but I do not believe that. I cannot believe that. And the reason I think you believe it is because you don't want to believe that that's what's really motivating them. It's always the case. People don't want to believe what the country actually is, because if they believe it, they're going to have to confront what's in them. I don't believe that. They voted for a crook, a person who they know is stealing just doing everything to undermine the so-called country that they love. And then they're telling us the BS that it's economics. We know.
You don't want to have to confront it because you don't want to say that's why they voted for him. Joe, go ahead.
I've said that before, that if you had a terrible disease but it was undiagnosed, would you still have the disease? You absolutely would have the disease. But what it also means is if it's undiagnosed, that means that you're not going to deal with it, right? And so the disease is going to take and have its effect. That's what we have now going on. There's many people out there that through their reporting, through their journalism, through their lives, through their prioritization of this or that and the other thing, they seek to embrace whiteness. And whether they want to or not, and even if they're very well-intentioned and they don't realize it, they still have to be accountable for the fact that this is not going to be dealt with unless and until you recognize that the disease is there. And so until you do that, what you do is you accuse Black people who Democrats don't win elections without and usually win elections because of. You accuse them of identity politics. You accuse Kamala Harris of wokeism, even though she stayed about as far away from wokeism and from identity politics as she could possibly have done. As a matter of fact, at the same time, she was damned if she did and damned if she didn't, because a bunch of folks were like, she really should have solidified her base and stopped trying to cater to Republican moderates and should have, supported these folks well and talked about their issues. So you've got two people both pointing at Black folks, right? Both pointing at Kamala Harris for different reasons, accusing her of things that she didn't do. And that helps you to change the subject. If you don't like what's going on, that's what you normally do. You change the subject. You change the subject to all of these things that she went out of her way to actually avoid during the campaign. And meanwhile, you don't deal with the issue at hand, actually facing the notion that we have a problem because we are based, created, and we function on identity politics. But when they do it, it's okay. But when we do it, or when we're accused of doing it, we are the reason, therefore, that an entire election is lost. But the fact of the matter is, we're the reason why elections get won. We're the most consistent Black women and then Black men. We are the most consistent supporters of the Democratic Party. And if they're not careful, and people buy too much of what James Carville's saying, it's been a long time since James Carville won in the elections, with all due respect to him. If we buy into that, if they buy into it, we buy into that so much, they buy into that so much, maybe we can just, we might decide to pull back, and then we'll see what the Democrats do then. And I'm not sure that they want that.
Randy, I wrote this, the next agenda for white America. White fear isn't just revealed through the talking heads on conservative cable networks. The silence and indifference of liberal white America is just as destructive as any gun-slinging, Confederate flag-waving conservative. While the economic or societal implications of a more diverse America may not pose an immediate threat to the average white liberal, the force of white fear will certainly rear its head when their liberal agenda feels challenged. Here's a perfect example. I had sent this book to a network, a network president, but also a network host. The host called me, and the host said, I would love to get you on my show, but my white producers don't like the title. Mm-hmm. I have never said to any producer, yeah, don't book that person because I don't like the title of their book. The white producers did not like the fact that I said white fear, how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. I used the cover art of January 6th. Y'all can pull up the white fear graphic. I purposely used the photo of January 6th because here's a white man with his arms outstretched, and what this symbolized to me is all this is ours. Why were they angry in that day? Because of Donald Trump kept saying that he was cheated in Atlanta, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Detroit. And so the reality is that we are in this space right now because, again, white media does not want to have a real honest conversation. All of these, Scott Pelley going to Pennsylvania, CNN going to talk to Latino voters in Atlanta. Here's the challenge. I would love to see ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. We know Fox News not going to do it because they ain't got no problem talking to the racists. I would love to see these networks send people. Take that list Chris Murphy said. We only won 3 of the lowest median states. Okay, go to those states and say, I'm curious, you voted for Donald Trump? Yeah, I did. Are you in the Affordable Care Act? Yes, I am. Trump wants to get rid of that. So do Republicans. Are you hopeful that with his tax cuts, companies are going to put more money into the pockets of workers than their own? Oh, yeah, Scott. I absolutely want that. Do you realize that when he gave them the last tax cut, they used it for stock buybacks? Do you own stock? No, Scott, I don't own stock. Okay. Are you aware that? Please tell me about the education in your state. Oh, we got an awful education system. Your state ranks 47th, 48th, 49th, or 50th in the country. Are you aware that Donald Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education? No, I wasn't aware of that. So please tell me, you want your wages to go up, you want better health care, you want a better education system, and you've voted for U.S. senators and president who hasn't improved any of that. What are you doing? You notice, Randy, not a single network will do that.
Right. The primary reason that I became the DEI disruptor, honestly, was because, I'm traveling, I'm working with all these major companies. Of course, mainly there are white people who are hiring me that are in charge. And they were very comfortable when we talked about DEI. What that meant to them, honestly, was LGBTQIA and women, because that's where they were comfortable. They really do not want you to talk about Blackness. In companies, in the government, they do not want to, in media, they don't want to confront Blackness. They don't want to confront our situation in America. They don't want to talk about the history, why we are where we are. And so they avoid it altogether. So the media is not going to do that. The second problem is, and I always feel like the universe puts me in the right places. Left your studio after the election, caught like 1:30 in the morning, caught a plane the next day to go to Alabama to attend Tuskegee's homecoming. And I'm up here in Buc-ee's, the big, I don't know what you would call that thing, but it's like a gas station, convenience store, everything, Walmart. And there it's rural, and there are a lot of white people in there, and they have on these shirts. Like, if you don't like Trump, then they're like these shirts that would be somewhat controversial. And I needed to be there because it helped me to understand how Trump pulled it off again. And what we must say that Trump has done a great job of doing is that he creates this idea of it's us against them. It is a war. And so these people just want their team to win. It is as basic for them as a football game. I'm telling you, they are not thinking about policies. They are not thinking about the economy. They don't care about the Department of Education, the school system. They just want to win, and they want to win their whiteness. And like we said, they want whiteness. Whiteness is more important to them than poverty. And they're fine to be poor as long as they are seen as more powerful than Black people. And so that's the frustrating thing, is because even if we were to say, well, what about this and what about that? I don't even think they're listening, because Trump has done a really brilliant job. One thing I have to give him, of making people not even think logically. These people aren't unfortunately, they're not researching. They don't know the policies. They have no idea, really. They're seeing the headlines on Fox News and they're believing it. Whatever they say, whatever tagline they come up with, and they're rolling with that. And all they want to do is win. But when winning, as we all know, makes them lose and keeps them in a position or going to make them in a position worse than they are today. But they don't see it. He has, Trump has elevated whiteness, brought it back in the way that it was seen, which we thought we'd escaped a little bit, not much. We were making progress, but he has brought that back, and they have bought it completely. And that's all they care about is winning and hanging on to their absolute whiteness. And so, no, they don't want to talk about white fear. The media doesn't want to talk about it because they are white too, right? And one last thing, of course, because of what I do, I have a lot of white women who come into my comments and they're talking, and they are so comfortable talking about sexism and misogyny. And that is why, Kamala did not win. But the minute I bring up race, they really are uncomfortable with that. They want to say, no, that wasn't it. They'll say, what about Barack Obama? And I said, why are you so comfortable looking at sexism and misogyny? But when it comes to race, and I said, if you want, because, Black women have decided we tired, we're not going to do anything. If you really want to join forces with Black women, you will have to acknowledge our position and what being Black is for us in this country. We're not going to just ride with you in sisterhood because of this sexism and misogyny. They want this whole sisterhood and sister movement, but they have to see what it really is for us. So no, I would say it's a very rare white person who is comfortable dealing with the true issue and history of race in America.
Absolutely. So I just love all of these different takes, and they're trying to come up with, oh no, focus on this, focus on that. When they did those things, Biden and Harris literally did those things. Now, you could say they didn't talk about them enough, but they actually did them. So let's see what they say when Trump does it. Gotta go to break. We come back. More on, okay, there we go. More on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network in a moment. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the Jodeci, that's Jodeci, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, Vice President Kamala Harris returned to the White House today and was greeted with enthusiastic cheers.
Got your low. Camera crew in the way. Camera. Okay.
best anybody can do is to dedicate ourselves to the people, to public service, to lifting folks up, knowing we have the power, and when we do that work, we make a difference. And you all are a part of doing that work every single day, and I am so grateful to each of you. So let's get back to work because we still have work to get done. And I'm sending you all my love and thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Always difficult when you lose a campaign, but there you have the vice president being very gracious and saying, we got to get back to work. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, we have to get back to work, and there's a couple months left, and so you really run it out. I would like to think that as she goes along, the vice president will become more and more encouraged and emboldened by what she accomplished. She was set up to do basically the impossible, and she did a doggone good job of it. She didn't make any of the mistakes that Hillary Clinton did, but she still found herself in a situation where I believe that she did everything that she could. Sure, you can argue this or that. You could do this differently. You could do that differently. But she ran hard, and she reminded us of what's possible. And sometimes we have to have perspective. When we don't win an election and we think it's a crucial election, everyone is, and we feel a certain type of way about it, we have to remind ourselves of how far we've come. And she has shown us how far that we've come. She was where she needed to be. The party put her in a position. Maybe the party didn't do everything that it could, or on the back end, there's some finger pointing that shouldn't be going on, but that's par for the course. But I'm glad that she did what she did. I'm glad she ran it the way that she ran it. She shouldn't have any regrets that way. And hopefully we'll be able to move forward, and hopefully she'll be able to move forward, because she doesn't have to be done in politics if she doesn't want to be. And I'd like to think that her best contributions are still ahead.
Randy?
I feel exactly the same. I have definitely been thinking about her, and I just want her to know that she still created such joy and hope for millions of Americans, and that she was able to do that in what she had 116 days or something like that is quite remarkable. And she still is the vice president of this country as a Black woman. And so she is to be celebrated and looked up to. And yeah, I'm just incredibly proud of her. And I hope that she feels that and knows that.
Mustafa?
What did Dr. King said? The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I mean, the things that we saw her be able to accomplish in 100 days is something that it would have took many other individuals a considerable longer time to actually build infrastructure, to be able to get the message out there, to be able to raise the funds that are necessary to be able to compete, so forth and so on. So what it did was it showed her brilliance and resilience. She reminds me of both Fannie Lou Hamer and Rosa Parks and Ida B. Wells and Shirley Chisholm. And I'm sure if Shirley was still with us, she would tell her, you know, how thankful she is for getting us that much closer to that final goal. So she just took the baton, took it a little bit further, and there will be someone else who will come. Another sister will come, and they will help to make it across the finish line. So excellent job, and we'll continue to fight on.
Indeed, folks. So you go on, and so if the Senate needs to be focused on confirming as many of the federal judicial picks as they can, that to me is critically important, and also locking down some of the other nominations and getting a lot of that stuff done. So hopefully you'll see President Biden as well as Vice President Harris actually doing that. Folks, the judge overseeing Donald Trump's New York criminal trial has delayed a key ruling on Tuesday that whether the president's conviction should be set aside. Trump's team wants the case dismissed, and the prosecution says it needs time to evaluate the next steps. Now that Trump has been reelected, the court has granted them a week's delay to provide their position. Trump's sentencing was scheduled for November 26th, but that has also been put on hold. A jury convicted him in May on 34 felony counts related to hush money payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. See, here's what I don't understand, Joe. Okay? He was convicted before the election. Him being elected ain't got a damn thing to do with actually what happened. And this idea that because he's now been elected, you get to set aside the conviction. That is absolutely illogical. There was a state representative in Texas who was convicted, who went to jail while still being a state rep. What am I missing here?
Yeah, she should. It shouldn't make a difference, right? First of all, it's a state case, right? And the feds don't have jurisdiction, so he doesn't have the ability to pardon himself, right? So nothing like that is going to happen, right? And this is a conviction. The horse is already out of the barn, as it were. This is a conviction. He, may appeal it, et cetera, but normally you're going to appeal it after the sentence, right? And so really, because it's a conviction and he's already convicted and it happened before he was elected, that should be running out. Now, of course, it's a practical matter with the appeal and all these other things. This could go on for years. But that being said, there's still the matter of sentencing him because he has been convicted. And maybe we're in another space where the judges or whoever else is just worried about how it's going to look. The fact that you have, a guy that you've elected president that has been convicted of a crime and you possibly sentence him. Yeah, he's a convicted criminal. That's what you do. It's not the jury's fault that we're here. It's not the prosecutor's fault that we're here, other than the fact that the prosecutor exercised the discretion to bring a case where they believe that they could get a conviction. And guess what? They got a conviction. Quit undermining. This is another way, whether they want to admit it or not, where we undermine who we are and what we're looking at. Yes, we elected a guy that's been convicted of 34 charges, and he should be sentenced just like anybody else would. Okay? And so, yeah, it should be convicted. He has been convicted and should be sentenced, and let that run through its course and see where it goes. But it's a state case. He doesn't have jurisdiction over it. He can't pardon himself. And there you are. So it should be happening still. Yeah.
I just don't get, Mustafa, how this DOJ memo is not in the Constitution. It's not a law. Impacts a state case. It doesn't matter if he was elected. What the hell is the point of having etched in stone above the Supreme Court equal justice under law if that's a lie?
Exactly. That's the same thing I was just thinking about. Because you send a message across the country that certain people are above the law. So does it stop at being president if you're a vice president and you violate the law, or if you're a senator? So, folks pay attention to these types of things. And it's incredibly important for us to make sure that there is justice inside of justice, if I can say it that way. But we know that privilege, and you can put whatever defining words you want in front of that, whether it is wealthy privilege or white privilege or whatever it is, but it comes down to privilege, being able to say that, yeah, you did the time or you did the crime, but you don't have to do the time. And we've got to change that dynamic, because it just sends the wrong message, not only to folks inside of our country, but it sends a message also across the planet about what does democracy look like and what does justice look like inside of that democracy.
There literally is nothing, Randy, nothing that says, oh, if you were convicted of a crime and then you got elected, oh, we can just throw the charges out. We can just throw them out. The reality is the judge could sentence him to probation. The sentencing happens before the inauguration. This is bullshit. And also, the Georgia case, that's a state case. It does not matter that he is elected. It does not matter. That case should be adjudicated even though he's been elected.
Well, nothing like this was brought up, or because I believe that most of us, when we were dreaming about America, we did not think that we would have a president-elect that was also a felon. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So they're scrambling now, trying to figure out what to do in this ridiculous situation that we have found ourselves in. I would think that we would hold our leader to the highest of standards. We certainly did. People like President Barack Obama, if he had had an overdue library book, it would have been a major issue. I believe, honestly, that one of the reasons that Trump decided to run again, I think it was to help him with these cases, so he could get essentially immunity, because I believe there was far more that he could fall down under and be accused of, because he's a criminal. right? And so it's quite disgusting. It will be interesting to see how they will try to figure this out and deal with it, because it's an embarrassment to us in front of the entire world that we're trying to figure out what to do with our president-elect as he faces his felonies. I mean, what?
I mean, I swear. And if y'all want to know, if y'all want to see a sign of sheer stupidity, and if you want to see how nonsensical the next 4 years is about to be, this dumbass just announced that he's nominating Fox News host Peter Hegseth as his Secretary of Defense. No words.
It's a joke. I mean, it's a very deadly joke, right? That is a position where you need to have someone who has an extreme amount of experience in that space. So we often laugh at some of these choices that are being made. In many instances, these are life and death situations with the people that they're putting in place. And it's not a laughing matter, even though it is laughable, but it's not a laughing matter because it places us in danger in relationship to all the challenges that are going on across the planet right now. You know, there are a number of locations that are teetering on war. So we need to make sure that we have individuals who are well-versed in what needs to happen in that space. When you put individuals as Secretary of State, and of course, there are just some names that, you know, that a name that is up there now, you need to have individuals who know what they're doing, not just because they kiss the ring. Now, we understand that we are dealing with an individual who does not necessarily care about expertise, even though he used to say that in relationship to business. But when it comes to government, he doesn't seem to have that same need. It is more about your loyalty. When you put somebody in place at the Environmental Protection Agency who has never worked on environmental issues, then you put our most vulnerable communities in danger. When you do these things around education, you put the future of young people in danger. When you put an individual, or supposedly going to put an individual in front of like what's going on in our healthcare space, you put people's lives in danger. So yes, it's comical when you see the lack of attention and understanding the expertise that's needed. That's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is how really real this is because of the impacts that will be felt by individuals, especially vulnerable communities. But in totality, everyone should be paying attention and should be speaking out and really pushing, even though I don't know if it will do any good, for them to actually put people in place who know what they're doing.
I don't know. Who wants to comment?
I told myself that I was going to try to block some of this out, but as I've seen the people that he wants to put in place to run this country, I must be honest that I'm quite terrified. I don't know if people saw Mark Rubio's comments about, what was going to happen, his position in Gaza and deportation and then who's the czar that he's going to put in charge of the mass deportations that are going to happen, which are somewhat unrealistic as far as this even the cost that it's going to be, and then, his announcement about, DEI today, of course, has me spinning, where he is just essentially saying that, when I heard essentially what he said is that white people are going to get reparations for the discrimination they have faced. Man,
Joe?
Yeah, this is crazy. This is butt backwards, as some would say. And you cannot do this way and not have it be felt, not have there be ramifications, not have there be consequences related to it. And so what I would hope is that the folks that voted Trump in and that seem to have supported this this return to foolishness, and which will be foolishness 2.0 without the Supreme Court weighing in and saying, no, actually you aren't immune from anything that you do, even if it's a crime, given the decisions that have happened, given them winning the battleground states as a mandate, even though he won by less than half of what Biden won by. You're going to have to own what he ends up doing because he's going to mess some things up. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for regular people. And a lot of the people that voted for him are going to find themselves, because they're not rich, they're going to find themselves directly affected. The assumption and the bet that they made is that somehow, some way, regardless of what he does, America will continue to be whatever it is that they want it to be, what makes them feel more secure, what makes them feel better. Like I was saying last week, their hope is that the grace, which is what it is, it's not because of everything great we did and us getting it right, was the grace, that the grace would continue. Well, they better be right, because if they have, because if it runs out, we got a serious problem.
Listen, y'all get ready for the loonies. And I'm just telling y'all, but this is what happens when people elect stupid people. They pick stupid people.
Bring in the clowns.
And that's exactly what we're dealing with. We're dealing with really stupid people. Let's go to a break.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, Donovan Carvalho has been missing from his Orange, California home since July 30th. The 16-year-old is 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighs 130 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Donovan should call the Orange County California Sheriff's Office at 714-647-7000, 714-647-7000. All right, y'all. Well, the craziest in Louisiana have had their unconstitutional law written unconstitutional. So after Jeff Landry, the MAGA Attorney General, was elected, they voted to force every school to place the 10 Commandments in every classroom in the state. Now, forget the fact Louisiana has one of the most horrible education systems. They decided that, you know what, we're going to just force every school to display the 10 Commandments. Federal judge said, no, that ain't going to work. Said that Louisiana officials cannot enforce HB 71. They also must notify the schools that it is unconstitutional. The 177-page ruling, of course, is going to be appealed by Attorney General Liz Morrell. Check this out. Jeff Landry, the governor, says, oh, he can't wait to be sued. Well, guess what? You got sued, and they claim they're going to appeal. Just this, Joe, is... people need to understand really what the goal here is. Republicans want to create a theocracy. They want funding for religious schools. They want this to happen, and they want this to be white Christian nationalism. That's what this is all about.
This is why they do things that are specifically against the Constitution, and specifically against established Supreme Court precedent. This was dealt with decades ago, separation of church and state. Same kind of situation, similar facts, dealt with that way. But you're going to see a lot of this. You're going to see a lot of them, based on their worldview, bringing cases that are totally unconstitutional, et cetera. But hell, who can blame them? When you know who the Supreme Court is, you want some things to be re-litigated or reconsidered that haven't been for a while. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, you rally your base, you rally your folks, you're doing the things that you're supposed to do in their eyes, and you might even win one or two of them. But this is a clear example of something that shouldn't be brought, because the separation of church and state is fundamental, and there is a Supreme Court case that's on point related to this issue. But again, this is the beginning of, you're going to see 4 years of this. You're going to see a lot of this, bringing things based on worldview, disregard the Constitution, disregard any of that, because what they believe is that in the judiciary, largely appointed by Trump, they will find people that will go along with them related to that. And to the extent that there are people that aren't going along with them, they will use that in their continued culture war and cultural value, culture battle to get rid of the people, the things, and maybe even, God forbid, the institutions that don't seem to go along with them.
To Joe's point, Randy, go to my iPad. This is the NOLA.com. Louisiana is the first state to require public schools to post the 10 Commandments in more than 40 years after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a similar Kentucky law in 1980. In its ruling, the Gravelist said the new law is, quote, legally indistinguishable from Stone versus Graham, the one the High Court struck down. Yeah, Randy, they want this to go back, and they think, oh, 6-3 majority. We got some religious zealots like Sam Alito, like Amy Coney Barrett, like Clarence Thomas. Yo, we might win.
Right. They, even though they know that, that is not what we have decided for this country a long time ago, they are going to just be throwing things at the wall, because guess what? They may stick. They have a Supreme Court that heavily favors them. I'm sure that they're even planning to get 2 more justices, during his tenure. So, yeah, and they want it to be a society that is really not thinking for ourselves anymore, but we are following the way they see the world. That's Christian, that's white. It takes me back to the days where every morning I had to get up and pledge allegiance to the flag, and that is, I believe that's what they want us to get back to. They are, when they say take America back, they were not playing. That's what they meant.
And Mustafa's gonna be more of this, a lot more.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's part of the strategy. You can't hate the game, right? They've been very clear about what they wanted to do, how they were going to do it, and people still refuse to believe them. So they will raise more money off of this for their fundraising. They will feed their base, which keeps everything whipped up. And they will also use these things as bouncing balls so that you're not paying attention to the fact that they haven't been able to address many of the issues that people said that they were voting for, whether it is the prices of food in the supermarket or gas prices or a number of other things. So they'll have you paying attention to these things over on the right-hand side while they're not doing anything to address what they said they were going to do.
And you want to talk about, again, how stupid these people are. So they've been making a big deal about this on social media because when Fox Sports did their broadcast on a carrier, national anthem was being played, and this was Michael Strahan. So they have been attacking Strahan, angry and upset. But here's what I find to be real interesting. So while they are attacking Strahan, here was a video of Donald Trump while the national anthem was being played. He's over here waving. He's over here dancing. He's over here speaking to people, all this sort of stuff. I'm sorry, is his hand over his heart? No, it's not. Oh, I know some of y'all might say, well, that's a video at Mar-a-Lago. Okay. Here's the White House. So this is where I just fundamentally will say, MAGA, y'all can kiss our collective ass. Because this is sheer stupidity. Jay Glazer posted this tweet. He said, I've just seen the criticism of Michael Strahan. Let me tell you this. I don't know if I have a friend who is more proud of his military roots than Michael. Growing up on an Army base, constantly talking about what he learned from his dad, Major General Strahan, and how his time there shaped him. I heard it constantly, still do. But also, with no fanfare, I personally saw him donate thousands of dollars of clothes to veterans, including many homeless veterans, as well as clothes for veterans to go on job interviews. I know these days people want to be angry fast, but maybe first, how is this for a novel idea? Ask him if he's protesting something. When you protest, you want people to know, don't you? He was not. Just got caught up in how beautiful the whole moment was during the anthem and didn't think about it. Ask the dude before forming an angry mob, but also maybe find out all he's done for our veterans over the years. See, this is just stupid. And I'm sorry, there's no requirement that you have to put your hand over your heart. That's just the dumb things people do. You can stand there at attention while the national anthem is playing. Oh, you know what? You can sit the hell down. Because you know what? The First Amendment comes first. I'm just so sick of these assholes who whine and complain about everything and say nothing when Trump don't have his hand over his heart. Randy, go ahead.
I promise you they wouldn't have said anything had it been a different former football player. They want Black people to comply. They become upset, just like with Kaepernick, although Kaepernick had a real protest. But the biggest issue is you are not complying, and they want us to comply and to feel as if they are in control of us. That's the issue. It's not because these are the same. I mean, we have watched during these rallies how they will wrap themselves in the American flag, wear bikinis of the American flag, but then they want to act as if they have such high standards of, you know, this patriotism and things you should and should not do. We have all been to games where many of them are not putting their hands over their hearts and things like that. The issue is wanting us, going back to what you said about white fear, is to ensure that Black people are in check.
Mustafa.
I mean, I don't know what you really say about some of this ridiculousness that goes on. As Randy said, I've been to plenty of football games where people don't want to put the beer down to put their hand over their heart, and they don't. So, you know, we continue to allow folks to create these chaotic situations by bringing forward things that have not as much relevance to some of the real significant issues that we have going on inside of our country. And as long as we allow them to continue to do it, they will do it because they get benefit out of it, because they want to play with democracy. You know, they don't really care about what democracy is and its fullness and the justice that's supposed to be a part of that process. They just want the faux democracy when it's convenient and when it looks good, and not the hard work that's underneath of it that has to be done to make it become a reality. So I'm not surprised But at the same time, we've got to continue to do the work that's necessary to make sure that we don't allow these types of things to take root in ground that should not be fertile.
Or, Joe, they can also look at this photo, too. You won't hear them whining about that one, huh?
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, it makes you speechless because there is such a double standard as it pertains to white folks in general and Donald Trump in particular. He is purposely irreverent, disrespectful, narcissistic. There's many more adjectives that I could put in there. And it shows up in ways. I mean, as it pertains to how many things has he done that should be objectively offensive as it pertains to the military, as it pertains to honoring families, and these other things. And, I had somebody tell me today, well, one thing about Donald Trump, you kind of know who he is. You kind of know who he is. Well, if he's an ass, is that good? Is that a good look? Okay, I know he's an ass. I know he's a convicted felon. I know he's someone that doesn't tell the truth. Are we better for that? And so, it's an interesting thing to see it kind of play out. But let's see what happens and what they're saying about that as his policy set in because of who he is. It reminds you of the story where somebody takes care of a snake and the snake ends up biting her and biting him, and the person says, well, why'd you bite me? I took care of you. He said, well, you knew you was a snake when you got with me. So, it's interesting to see what we're doing. We expect it to be something different than what it actually is. So I guess we'll see how we end up feeling about that.
Absolutely. Folks, a federal grand jury has indicted a Kentucky lieutenant from the Federal Bureau of Prisons for civil rights violations. Zachary Toney, who worked at the U.S. Penitentiary McCreary in Pine Knot, is accused of using unlawful force against an individual and falsifying records to obstruct an investigation. According to the indictment, Toney allegedly kicked and struck a handcuffed victim repeatedly, causing bodily harm. He then lied about it. Well, that's no shock. They always lie in those reports. Omitting the use of force and claiming no injuries took place, Toney also instructed correction officers to exclude observations of his actions from their reports. If convicted, he could face up to 10 years in prison for deprivation of rights, up to 20 years for each count related to falsification of records and witness tampering. And so don't be surprised. Don't be surprised at all, Joe, if we don't see these type of prosecutions under a Trump Department of Justice.
Listen, it's in my notes. These are going away. All right. These are going away. You're going to see that list. You're going to see lying guys who actually want to prosecute the bad guys being told which bad guys they can prosecute and which ones they can't, or being told that, this is where you go, or being replaced if they don't do that. And so I saw it just as that. I saw it as a last gasp of trying to bring about justice in a situation where this guy clearly needs to be prosecuted based on what he said, what he did, what he instructed other officers that witnessed the incident to do in terms of leaving certain things out of their reports, et cetera. He is A1, example A1 of somebody that needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And so you add that along with one of the things that are promised in Project 2025, and that is getting rid of consent decrees entirely. And what that means is that police, bad police, will be allowed to run roughshod over people. These departments will not be held to account. And folks, even that are in the departments that are trying to do the right thing and have them go the right way. This is the one area in an irony where they seem to be okay with unions, because police unions are the ones that wield the power. And they'll rise up. That's what happened in Minneapolis. They'll rise up against the chief, even if the chief is trying to do what's right. And so that will be allowed to continue proliferate unmitigated and undealt with. And so it's going to be interesting. But that was my exact thought, is that, well, we aren't going to see too many more of these.
I gotta run this by y'all. So the folks at Uncommitted, they they were highly critical of Vice President Kamala Harris, President Joe Biden, and then of course they, told folks don't vote for them in Michigan. So they've released this post-election statement, calling for. I'm looking at this here. So they're calling for President Biden. They said, today our message is clear. This moment requires more than resilience. It demands decisive action. The Biden-Harris administration must put an end to the flow of weapons that fuel this cycle of violence, and it goes on and on and on. Now, they turned their comments off. I'm sorry, Mustafa. Go holler at Trump. Go tell all those folks in Dearborn, Michigan, who sucked up to Trump, who kissed his ass, who voted for him. Matter of fact, go talk to Jill Stein.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's just amazing. I put all this hope in people and assuming that we have these remarkable brains that we're going to use, and we make, educated, calculated decisions about what would be best for our lives. And when you have individuals who have folks who have been very clear about what they won't do, and you still give them your vote, or you call yourself removing yourself from the process, knowing that that is the same thing as giving your vote, then it's just mind-boggling. I can't tell you how many people have called me and said, in retrospect, I wish I had done X. Well, you can wish that you had done X, but you made a choice to either vote for Trump, or you made a choice to remove yourself from the electoral process. And there are going to be outcomes that are going to be detrimental to the folks who you said you cared about and who you were trying to advocate for. You could have had an administration that would at least sat down and listened to you, and then you could have negotiated with them for some of the things that you wanted. But now you have an administration that is very clear that the things that you have asked for, they have no interest in. And if you push too hard, they will arrest you. If you're out in the streets marching and protesting like many of us have done over the years, there is a strong chance that you will be met by force. I'm not positive, but I think there's a strong chance. So, you can't have buyer's remorse now. You made a decision, and now all of us have to live with the decisions that we've made.
This is the one I love the most here, Randy. This was an article. The mood in Dearborn is a complex mix of disbelief and wary curiosity. Trump came to Dearborn and made a lot of promises. He said, adding that residents he has spoken to are wondering what Trump will do for Palestinians. LOI thinks the reality is obvious. It's clear as day that he's playing us. I think he's going to target us. That's what he's going to do. He's going to target our families, and it's going to hurt. So I think we're about to find out. Yeah, Randy, you're about to find out because you fucked around.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say they fucked around, and now they're going to find out, and they're going to find out swiftly. And, people try. Look, we tried to tell you. I mean, we tried our best to tell you, and Trump told you. I mean, this is the man that I think the first executive order, or one of the first he did it. His last, was the Muslim ban. I mean, he has been very clear about who he is. People just did not want to believe him, and they wanted to justify their misogyny and their racism and say, oh, it's because of this issue and that issue. But they did not believe who Trump told him he was. I mean, he's been clear. So I don't understand the surprise. And now, of course, you're immediately seeing this remorse from all different identity groups as they see what this world is going to look like for them going forward, at least for the next 4 years.
Joe?
Yeah, again, just like I said, people are assuming that this America will continue being this great America, whatever it is that they want it to be. But somebody's going to get hurt under this thing. And I believe that the Palestinians, I think that the Palestinians, I don't think that there's much public sentiment at all that's going to weigh any amount at all, any measurable amount in that administration. So as bad as they feel like they've done over the last 4 years, it certainly doesn't get better. I don't think there's any question that it gets better, that it'll get better. It's going to get worse. I think it's going to get a whole lot worse.
So we're going to see a lot of these stories, y'all, happening over the next few months, and I dare say 4 years. So we're going to roll this every time we see one of these stories. How many of y'all have seen the video, which I think is pretty funny? How many of y'all seen the video of the woman whining and complaining how her family has cut her off for Thanksgiving? I mean, she was shedding a lot of orange tears and just really upset. Let me see if I can give me just a second. I can pull this up. So my heart was just warmed when I saw this because I really don't give a damn. And I really enjoyed seeing all her tears about how her family has disowned her and she don't know what to do. And y'all, let me tell you something. Man, this video here, they lit that thing up on TikTok. It went to Homegirl's account and she just got lit. Man, where is this video? Where is it? Have anyone, y'all seen, first, have y'all caught any of these pretty good videos from these folks? Because me personally, I've been cracking up laughing.
I saw the one about Hernandez. I can't remember his first name, and he voted for Trump proudly. And he has most of the neighborhoods, a Trump neighborhood, they have their Trump signs out there. And his kids went to play with the neighborhood kids, and the neighborhood kids told him that they didn't want to play with him, that them, and that you're Mexicans and go back to your country and you don't need to be here and get out. And so Mr. Hernandez has been crying and he's so upset and he hates it and he wish he hadn't voted for Trump. And that has been a very popular video that has gone quite viral. But he's literally on there crying because it's your kids, and the kids came back crying. They said, "Oh, they won't play with me." I mean, you hate for the kids to be hurt, but he really felt that he was doing something by voting for Trump. So yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh, here it is, y'all. I had to find it. Okay, this, y'all, is awesome. Watch this here.
I'm not crying happy tears. I'm not gonna be apologetic for being excited, because if it was the other way around, all of the Kamala supporters would celebrate. I wanna say that first. I'm very relieved because I voted what I believe in, and I felt heavy on my heart that it's the right thing. So knowing that it was the decision the American people made, I'm relieved and I'm very happy. Very, very happy, okay? It's the very first day of finding out the election results. All of us are happy. I'm very happy, but I'm not going to continue to post about it, but I'm also not going to be sorry about it. And I always talked about how my family, sorry, I don't want to make this more than once. I always talked about how my family had different beliefs, my grandma and my mom and my sister, and how we always got along. And I wore my grandma's sweater to go vote, and I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to cry, okay? But my heart's broken.
Try not to cry.
Yeah, try it. My grandma just sent me a very sad text. It broke my heart. And my mom has yet to text me back today. My point of making this video is to say that I am very happy, and I expressed how happy I was. And I'm not gonna be sorry for that. I'm completely heartbroken that my family is taking it how they are. I never did this to them when Biden won. Never. But I am done with political posts. From here on out, it's back to normal. If you don't like me because of who I voted for and you have to unfollow, go ahead. My own family unsubscribed from my life, so you can too. I promise. It doesn't get worse than that. Guys, I'm not crying.
I saw that, Randy, Mustafa, and Joe. You know, all I could think about was this. Come on, guys.
Now the funeral is over, and all the tears are dried up. Niggas hanging tape on the cut, getting fired up. Looking for the nigga who pulled his pistol on my homie. And I for an eye, so now your life.
Come on, shut up. I'm just saying. I'm playing. Guys, come back to the panel. Thank you. All right? We're supposed to play that over the panel. That's what I'm thinking. I got no tears. Every time I see one of the videos, I'm going to play Scarface. Every time, Mustafa. Every time. I'm going to play Scarface.
You should, because, you know, maybe I think about this stuff on a deeper level. You know, these folks, you know, as they're celebrating, are they really paying attention to the actions that the person that they voted for is already putting in place, and the pain that it's going to cause, and the individuals who are going to be hurt by it? So, you know, someone once told me, sorry, not sorry. That's exactly where I am in this moment. And, you know, you can cry the tears all that you want to, because they're temporary tears, because you don't have to live in the communities that are going to have, you know, unfortunately, more police officers doing nefarious things. You don't have to live in the communities where their people are going to find it harder to breathe clean air or drink clean water or get lead out of the water in the schools where the kids are. And I can go down the laundry list of things that these people are going to be crying real tears, while you'll be able to go right back to your life as you were.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. Matter of fact, several people sent me this one too, and I really, Randy, do not care how this dude feels.
MAGA family, I was on TikTok Live, and a fellow Trump supporter said that all he needed was my vote. I'll never be part of the MAGA family, and that I'm black, I'll never be accepted, but he just got my vote. Nah, that's crazy. Like, I love MAGA Nation, I love the MAGA family, and that breaks my heart that someone would speak to me like that right after the election, that all I was a vote? Nah, I love all you guys, and I know most of you MAGA family members are not racist, and I love you guys, and I'll keep repping MAGA Nation, Trump 2024, but that really broke my heart that some guy would say that. Extremely heartbroken.
So he was extremely heartbroken. So, I mean, I guess, Randy, I would just think about... Tony Braxton's Unbreak My Heart. Man, go sit your punk ass down. They ain't never gave a damn about you. They ain't never gave a damn about your silly ass walking around in that dumb ass MAGA hat. They let you know exactly what they think about you.
Have been very clear about how they felt about his black ass. I mean, I can't even, I feel sorry for his mama. Bless his poor little soul. I mean, he is pitiful. He is the ultimate of pitiful. Like, he is trying so hard to be accepted into a club that he can never be accepted into, ever, no matter what. Poor thing. Poor thing. He's talking about his heart is broken. It's gonna be shattered. I mean, give it some time. Ooh, child. Poor lost soul.
I'm telling you, these folk are funny. I mean, they just really are just bothered, Mustafa. They just, I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do.
Well, you play yourself. We have history with a small percentage of our folks. We can go back to on the plantations where we had a tiny percentage of our folks who would do anything that Massa asked for. Somebody once said it. Y'all remember when they said, if Massa's sick, I'm sick. You know, right, so right. We come through history where we have our folks who want desperately to be white for some of the folks. For other folks, they just want to be accepted. And it doesn't matter. You saw individuals who was it? The brother who was running for governor in North Carolina.
Mark Robinson.
Mark Robinson. And Mark Robinson said he would love to join the KKK. If, you know, you have these individuals who I would love to say they've been through Stockholm Syndrome, but it's not just the Stockholm Syndrome type of thing. They truly believe that if somebody smacks you in the face, then you should turn around and get smacked in the other side because you don't think that they'll do it. And then when they do it, you'll say, well, they must have had a good reason to do it. And that's exactly what you got going on with some of these individuals, that no matter what folks say or do to them, they want so desperately to be a part of that supremacy club. And maybe what they think is, if I'm part of that club, then maybe the impacts won't be as great to me. But the reality is that they will never see you as human. They will never see you as an equal, but they will pimp you. And that's exactly what they did. Gotcha.
Watching this.
This here is the video Randy was talking about. Joe, watch this.
Hola familia, aquí con ustedes. Haciendo este.
So for all the English-speaking people that are watching this, watch this video. Basically, the guy is talking about his experiences living in a neighborhood filled with other Trump supporters. And he wanted his fucking kids to play with the other Trump supporters, but guess what? They don't want his kids to play with their kids, because their kids are Hispanic, to the point where they're going to scare the kids off by shooting guns in the air. But this is what you wanted. This is what y'all picked. So don't complain and don't fucking bitch. This is what you fucking chose. So shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of my...
These people, I'm telling you, it's a lot of... I know some people out there like, yo, bro, a lot of cuts. I'm telling y'all, folk are not, they just like, yo, we ain't trying to hear it. I mean, I keep, people don't understand when we talk about there being consequences. And there are people who are like, yo, we tried to tell you, you didn't want to listen, you wanted to sit here and act a fool, you sat here and you, and then now you're upset because folk say we're not coming to your aid. And I'm telling y'all, it's about to be a real, it's gonna be more tears, and I'm telling you right now, this gonna be me all day. What's for lunch? We'll be going to the park.
Yeah, these folks.
Joe, I don't want to hear the whining.
Right, yeah, you can't whine, because at the end of the day, this is what they thought about you. All you could do was vote for them, vote with them, and then after that, you can go and do whatever they believe people that look like you do. And, you know, I'm not Hispanic or Latino, but I couldn't imagine, you know, toning down my heritage or any of those types of things for these particular folks, you know, and subjecting my kids to a situation where you don't have your eyes open about who folks are and who folks aren't. And so now they want to be accepted, you know, because they voted for Trump. But the fact that they voted for Trump doesn't change how they are seen in the eyes of certain people. And so now you're going to have to deal with that. And that's where you are. And then this brother with the MAGA hat on, listen, I wouldn't get his cat 5 cents for cheese on a Whopper. He didn't get to come to the barbershop. He don't get to come to the barbecue. And he going to have to sit in the back row in church. Okay? Now, the sun is going down in here in California, so he better go and get his black behind home before Massa beats him like he stole something. That's all I got.
I'm just telling y'all right now, okay? I'm going to H-Town for Thanksgiving. And everybody else, they're going to be having their turkey and stuff. I'm eating gumbo. I'm just telling you, look, ain't nobody rolling up in the crib with a MAGA hat.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And I'm telling you right now, Mustafa, you my alpha brother, the level of hostility that I would have goes beyond if every one of my nephews was an Omega, Kappa, Sigma, and an Iota. I would be like, oh, hell no. I'm telling you right now. So for all these people who say, well, no, you know, we should put politics aside. Now, I wouldn't even let your ass eat a plate. You have to go to Popeyes or go get you a hot dog at 7-Eleven, because you ain't rolling up in my house. Matter of fact, I would treat a MAGA voter, if somebody roll up in my family house at Thanksgiving, I would treat you worse if you a Negro who didn't pay his child support and you looking for a plate. And I ain't got no problem saying it.
I mean, it's real, right? So folks who decided to vote for Trump, there's an ideology, and that ideology is not one that is beneficial to our communities. So why would we co-sign? Like when we hang out with someone or we invite them into our space, we are saying that your belief systems are something that I'm comfortable with. So, you know, I'm just always amazed how we try and figure out ways of sanitizing, you know, the most vile things. And in this instance, it is, you know, the sets of policies that this new administration is going to move forward on. So if that's what you're down with, you're welcome to do it in your home or in your community and enclaves where you might find a whole bunch of folks who believe like you do. But, you know, and this is a shout out to my mama. My mama raised over 50 children, all kinds of different people. Anybody was in trouble, she'd bring them in. And my mother has this thing about on Thanksgiving of going out and bringing people off the street so they have something to eat. So mama, I hope this year that you don't not necessarily bring folks in, but that you are selective about the individuals who deserve your charity and your grace.
Well, Waka Flocka had a little attitude because this happened. He was supposed to appear at some event, and these folk in D.C., and these folks, this Lax Wine and Spirits, they said, I love and support my community first and foremost. I'm not a huge political or music person. I truly had no idea about the views of Waka Flocka Flame, nor do I share his views. My community has spoken, and the event tomorrow has been canceled. It's supposed to be a meet and greet. Hey, dog, take your ass to a MAGA event. Let's see if they buy your music. You can go out there with Diamond and Silk or Diamond. I can't figure which one of them is still living. Go on here and go with them. No, don't be trying to roll up in here. Because see, here's the other deal. Waka Flocka, before the election, cussed out the audience and said, if you a Harris supporter, get the hell out of my concert. I ain't got no problem with them canceling his ass.
No, Waka Flocka and Amber Rose need to get together and figure out a new career. Because I promise you, MAGA ain't going to have near one of them, and I said near one of them on any circuit. They're not going to be working with them. It's done. They used them for what they used them for. They've been over. They got what they got, and it's over. And so, and he showed the Black community, and Amber Rose showed the Black community who they really are. And we're not going to forgive them. They're not coming back. So they need to start looking for some sort of other skill. I hope they have other. Well, I don't know if Amber Rose really ever had.
And Joe, Ray J too. All y'all gone with them red hats.
I didn't know about him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Ray J was down there at Mar-a-Lago with Amber Rose, all excited and happy. As they, as they, Joe, I'm gonna go to the country. Go on, get.
Yeah, hey, listen, go and make it last forever like Keith Sweat, because hey, listen, all you got, the lifeblood of one's musical career is being able to appear with your audiences, and you might cross over a little bit and do some pop and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if your people don't support you, you're going to end up having a problem. And so you run the risk of having that happen. And so, whatever comes. And so, you really need to look both ways before you cross that street. And if he didn't, and he suffers a consequence, then that's where he'd be. I mean, I guess he's sure that he doesn't need music for his career and for his life to work out. And if that's the case, that's fine, because there's a whole lot of people that might not check for him because of how he came out. And that's just how it is.
Well, there you go. And just in case you didn't see this photo here, well, there you go. Okay. You ain't coming to my house for Thanksgiving. All right, y'all, that's it. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much to Randy, Mustafa, as well as Joe. I appreciate it. Folks, y'all know we keep it real, we keep it honest, and we don't sit here and play games. And so we just go ahead and call like a TI is. And some folk, they can't handle that, but that's how we do it, how we bring the funk, because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And so that's what we gonna do. And so we gonna keep doing that. And so I'm about to sit here. Let me do this before I go. I got to give a shout out. And I cannot believe my man is 17 today. Yo, I cannot believe my man. So this is a photo from 2 years ago of my nephew Chris. Chris turned 17 years ago. So we all the November babies. So my nephew Chris, his birthday is today. My brother's birthday is tomorrow. My birthday is on Thursday. And so we all back to back to back. And man, I'm telling you, I'm still mad. I was praying his wife could just hold on for 2 more days and have Chris on my birthday. But she was like, no, hell no, I ain't doing that. So shout out to my man Chris. Happy 17th birthday. All right, y'all. Support the work that we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Y'all know, look, these Republicans out here, they spending billions of dollars. They sending all this money to the right-wing media. And listen, we ain't got billionaires and millionaires sending us checks, but your dollars are making it possible to do the work that we do. We finally had to figure out a workaround with Cash App. We got it right here. And so Cash App, what they did is they canceled, y'all, a whole lot of accounts, business accounts. And so they did not allow us to be able to do it. We had to close our accounts. But my man Keenan found this workaround. And so now you're able to support the work that we do by, of course, using this QR code. So if you go through Stripe, so what you'll do is you simply put in your name. You'll put in your name, and then you will then put in your Cash App, the amount you want to give. And so I know a lot of y'all have been waiting. I appreciate that. We've been, again, like I say, doing the work, trying to make it happen. And so again, to use this QR code, for you to give via Cash App. Now, you can see your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. And again, pull the Cash App. Use this QR code via Stripe for you to donate via Cash App. And so we appreciate all of you who donate. Also, a bunch of y'all been messing around. Y'all should be hitting that like button on YouTube. Y'all hurry up. Y'all been slow, so hit that doggone like button so we can go ahead and register that so we can keep this thing moving and build up the following, and we have more people, of course, checking out the show. So please do that. And I found this, and this is when we were in Jamaica last year. So this is a more recent photo of me and my homie, my nephew Chris. So again, Chris, for happy birthday. All right, y'all, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?